What's the story here, Vinny? Male, late 40s, sir? Appears to be clutching 2 copies of Power Rangers 4K Blu-rays, probably guarding it with his life. Now, victim appears to have been strangled using a 1-meter mono cable. But I don't understand, sir. Why mono cable? Well, maybe the killer is not the stereotype. Hello everyone, Vincent Teo from HDTV Test here. I'm a TV reviewer and professional calibrator. Today we're talking about cables, specifically HDMI cables, which are the most common cables you use to hook up your sources to your TV these days. First things first, a more expensive HDMI cable won't necessarily give you better picture quality. Depending on your usage, it either works or it doesn't. And some symptoms of HDMI cable failure are 1. You get no video signal at all. 2. You get signal dropouts. Or 3. You get sparklies on screen which represent individual pixels dropping out. If you are experiencing any of these problems, then perhaps it is time to get a new HDMI cable. There is no need to spend a fortune. Just spend enough to get a stable picture on screen. Spending any more won't give you better picture quality. You won't get better contrast. You won't get better shadow detail. You won't get better colors. When choosing a HDMI cable, the important things to consider are possible video bandwidth and cable length. Let's discuss video bandwidth in the first place. And to do that, I'll need to talk about different HDMI versions. HDMI 1.4 allows for a transmission bandwidth of 10 gigabits per second. HDMI 2.0 increases the transmission bandwidth to 18 gigabits per second. And with HDMI 2.1, maximum bandwidth goes up to a whopping 48 gigabits per second to accommodate 8K resolution at higher frame rate, chroma resolution, and bit depth. Now, I know some of you are waiting to buy a true HDMI 2.1 television. But even if we get true HDMI 2.1 TVs at CES 2019, the reality is that native 8K content isn't going to become commonplace within the next couple of years. So we're only concerned with HDMI 2.0 at the time I filmed this video on the last day of 2018. There are 4 key factors that increase the video bandwidth requirement. 1. Resolution. For example, going from 1080p to 4K UHD. 2. Frame rate. Let's say going from 24 frames per second to 60 frames per second. 3. Bit depth. Going from 8-bit to 10-bit or 12-bit. And 4. Chroma sampling. Let's say going from 420 to 422 or 444. There are other things like HDR, metadata, and white color gamut info frames too, but their bandwidth requirements are relatively small compared with an increase in resolution, bit depth, frame rate, or chroma sampling. Among current consumer devices, 4K game consoles such as the Xbox One X and PS4 Pro generally require the highest HDMI bandwidth because they are sending out UHD resolution at 10-bit, 60 Hz, and maybe RGB video signal which is equivalent to 444 chroma. So to obtain a stable picture, you will need an HDMI cable that can pass the full HDMI 2.0 bandwidth of 18 gigabits per second. Another factor to consider is cable length. Under 3 meters is usually fine, but the longer the cable above that length, say up to 15 meters for projector runs, the more likely you'll experience HDMI signal failure. The HDMI licensing body actually runs a premium HDMI cable certification program, where cable manufacturers can submit their cables to be tested and certified to pass the full 18 gigabits per second bandwidth of the HDMI 2.0 specifications. So if you're in doubt, look for HDMI cables that carry the premium HDMI certified logo. You can even use a mobile app to scan the holographic QR code to verify its authenticity. Because of the certification and licensing cost, premium certified HDMI cables are generally more expensive than non-premium certified cables. But please bear in mind that this doesn't mean that a non-premium certified cable will definitely fail the 80 gigabits per second bandwidth test. So in this video, we have gathered in a bunch of HDMI cables, some premium certified, some aren't, some long, some short, some thin like a chopstick, some thick like a snake, and ran a bunch of tests to check their HDMI bandwidth throughput. First, we tested the cable using the excellent Meridio Fresco 6-pair devices consisting the 6G signal generator and the 6A signal analyzer. Here's how it works. We connect the HDMI cable being tested to both the Meridio 6G and 6A. We then ask the 6G generator to send out a video signal close to the HDMI 2.0 18 gigabits per second level, and the 6A will analyze the signal received through the HDMI cable and tell us if the cable has passed or failed. For real-world testing, we came up with 3 scenarios. 1. We used a Microsoft Xbox One X with YCC422 disabled so that the console puts out the highest video bandwidth of 10-bit UHD at 60Hz and let the CPU play with itself in FIFA 19 for the entire match. 2. We used a Sony PS4 Pro with the video output set to the highest default of 2160p 60Hz RGB to see if there are any dropouts or sparklies. And finally, we used a Panasonic UB9000 to play a 4K Blu-ray of Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, which is filmed at 60Hz rather than the traditional film look of 24Hz. With the Panasonic UB9000 set to output 12-bit 422 at 3840 x 2160 pixels at 60Hz in 4K HDR, this is another challenging real-world test of the 18 gigabits per second bandwidth throughput of any HDMI cable. So here are some HDMI cables that successfully passed all 4 tests in alphabetical order. Atlas Element 18G high-speed HDMI cable with Ethernet 2 meters and 3 meters. QED Profile eFlex high-speed HDMI cable with Ethernet 1.5 meters. QED Performance high-speed HDMI cable with Ethernet 1 meter. QED Performance eFlex high-speed HDMI cable with Ethernet 1 meter. Slim HDMI high-speed HDMI cable with Ethernet 0.75 meters, a length that proves you don't need to compensate for other parts in your life. Slim HDMI Premium high-speed HDMI cable with Ethernet 3 meters and 7.5 meters, both HDMI Premium certified. I'll put a link to these cables in the YouTube description below. Please bear in mind that this is by no means an exhaustive list. I don't have the time or resources to test every single HDMI cable on the market, so I just got my hands on a bunch of cables from UK-based brands, and these are the cables that passed all 4 of our tests. If you are in the USA, Amazon Basics, Monoprice and Blue Jeans Cable are all good brands, but I haven't managed to import and test any of their HDMI cables. If you want peace of mind, just pay a bit more for a premium certified HDMI cable, and remember to buy an HDMI cable with Ethernet if future enhanced ARC compatibility is important to you. Most of the latest HDMI cables support HDMI Ethernet channel functionality anyway. If you found this video useful, please click the like button and subscribe to the HDTV Test YouTube channel for more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.